So, welcome to the Secure Dynamics TechCast. With me, I have a first-time guest. I'm going to read Aisha Prakash, your profile from LinkedIn, like cyber threat intelligence and strategic alliances leader and advisory board member, and currently the vice president worldwide channel and alliances at Kela. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Ashwin.
Aisha, I know you're very vocal advocate on diversity. So, again, focusing on the cybersecurity sector, why do you think diversity matters today more than ever, if it does?
You know, whether it's the moral and the ethical argument driving you as a person or as an organization, or not. I mean, we already know this, and we've known this for many years now. That several studies that have been and research shows us that organizations that have more diverse employees or have seen more success financially. And McKinsey's recent report actually mentioned that higher diversity teams are hands down performing more and bringing in more financial profits for an organization. And I think that's a very critical finding to really look at. And I'll highlight that for reasons not just from a financial perspective, but unfortunately to say that the ethical argument is not moving the needle. And I think this is why diversity matters from one angle. The other angle, I think, from a cybersecurity perspective, and this is the most critical point that I would say, is the diversity in viewpoints. Threats are becoming more and more diverse. The people executing on the threats, the threat actors, are also very diverse. To have a diverse set of people within your security team that bring different viewpoints and different strategies or solutions, you could say, on how to combat these threats are very important. And I think this is one of the critical reasons, I think, why diversity should matter to you as an organization within cybersecurity.
You mentioned a few points over there, right? One is the ethical angle, which is there's only so much you can push the moral compass before people say, oh, yeah, it's business first and so forth. The second aspect is really, which is in order for a leader to embrace diversity, different viewpoints, right? He or she has to be an inclusive leader, number one, but also be humble that the way they have grown to the top, quote unquote, may not be the same way somebody else is, right? So what have you seen in terms of leaders who are able to kind of walk the talk and be able to actually embrace people with different viewpoints and different backgrounds?
I think it comes with understanding the importance of the viewpoints. See, a good leader surround themselves from different viewpoints, right? So you can have the opportunity to not just have your own, but all the other viewpoints, because we can't look at things from every angle. One individual can. So I think that's number one thing. Number two thing I think that's very important is looking at your own privilege. You know, me as even a woman of color within cybersecurity, I'm South Asian in technology. So the net is I have a lot of privilege, a lot more privilege than a lot of my other peers. So understanding the opportunities that maybe were given to me, even as an immigrant who became, naturalized American citizen today, who came to this country as an immigrant, I have had way more opportunities than many of my peers. And to understand that, if BLM in 2020 wasn't a wake up call for you, then maybe it is just spending the time and understanding that different viewpoints are not just beneficial from being able to combat threats, but also financially, but more importantly, from an ethical point. This is very important, is that you take your privilege and you give back so people can have the opportunities that you did.
Great point. So talking about from you mentioned that diversity of opinion and diversity of mindset actually makes an organization secure. Talk a little bit about how, especially when we kind of push the needle when it comes to AI and data sets and inferences, right? The ability to not get myopic in making predictions and really being able to embrace data. We've seen, I think, instances of this with the chatbot that Microsoft had that went crazy and started uh, essentially mouthing racial slurs because it had a very narrow data set, or I think it was Uber or one of the others that had not actually scoured the Hispanic neighborhood, and therefore it kind of got confused with the facial colors. So how, I mean, these implications obviously have much larger views, especially as decisions are kind of being offloaded from humans to bots. So what have you seen in terms of people realizing this is an existential thing? We talked about morality, we talked about business, but also if you don't embrace this right now, this could actually create chaos in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, we talk about AI, we talk about machine learning. AI, it's a computer. It runs on and learns from the data that you input in there. And the people behind the scenes inputting that data bring their own viewpoints. So if that group is not diverse, if the data is not diverse, then the output is not going to be accurate. And that's just the black and white of the truth. And you're absolutely right. The impact that you're looking at it from a, think about it from a biometrics perspective. We could be identifying the wrong people, and it could really be detrimental to their life. We've actually seen cases such as that, as you mentioned, from a Microsoft perspective. I mean, where it can be very detrimental. And I think that's one of the reasons why we need to understand. And there's a positive outlook on that. It's just like the fact that more viewpoints means more opportunities, more types of solutions for you to embrace. I think that's one of the critical things, is looking at it from the bottom up, and understanding that if we want to approach it from a perspective where we have equality, then we need to do it from every angle. And that means in every position, and also from a position of, the other spectrum is looking at if you're an organization that has, let's say, a group of your customers are very young, younger generation, and then your security team is comprised of a group of people that are more older, more senior. Well, they may have a perception that because younger people are more technologically savvy, they might be more security savvy, and that's not always the case. We know that. And then you're not doing yourself justice by having that viewpoint, which can actually harm you.
That's a great point. I think truly understanding the demographics and being able to relate to them and not have your biases play in the way. So one final question, again, you mentioned this briefly, but the aspect of giving back and the aspect of mentorship. So how have you seen organizations that actually have mentorship kind of built in, so that somebody new coming in, where he or she may not have a leader to look up to because of who they are, their upbringing, and how has mentorship actually helped them kind of blaze a new path?
Oh, mentorship. I could go on and on about the importance and the relevance of mentorship within an organization level. It's to have diversity programs or training that's mandated. We actually know that mandated diversity training actually has been detrimental to diversity and inclusion. Because with diversity, inclusion is what's more important, right? To drive diversity, you need to have inclusion. So how do you do that? Having those type of mentorship programs where, people of marginalized groups, women have sponsorship of some sort, where they have this confidential line of reporting where they can come with challenges and concerns, or even just support or guidance on, or career advice or advice on a particular project, can be very positive, can have very positive impact. In fact, I learned very early on in cyber as a woman of color, that there are definitely less opportunities for women and of other marginalized groups in cybersecurity, because historically people have hired people that look like them. And so, unintentionally, we created this pay it forward movement in cybersecurity that I'm very proud of. And what that entails is everyone, including you, Ashwin, including myself, can be a mentor and a mentee, or both at the same time. And what that is if someone comes to you for help, whether it's, hey, introduce me to this person because I want to apply for this job, or hey, can you help me with advice on my career, or I'm working on this project and I need help. Whatever that is, we encourage people in the pay it forward movement to help another woman, another person of the marginalized group that may not have the opportunities that you've had. But instead of asking, instead of taking their gratitude, you ask them to pass it on by helping another, and come back to you by telling you what they did to help another. And frankly, I'm very proud to say the last few years, we've seen this, global. I mean, I've had people call me from Dubai and tell me, this happened and this is how I helped out. And I'm so thankful for the Pay It Forward movement. And it's really a mentor and mentee program that, Ashwin, that I'm telling you about it. There's no formal capacity here. Yes. You can start it today. And it's been really successful. And one of the big things that's come back is, even a person that is a entry-level person can make a difference. A person that is definitely a CEO can certainly make a difference, but we're all making a difference. And people that are more privileged, like myself, can really leverage our positions to help another. the second component, I think, and the final thing I think a mentor-mentee program can be helpful is for cybersecurity. We're in an industry that people don't know about. My mom still doesn't know what I do. So, she thinks I'm in security, or she thinks that I'm do stuff on the computers. But, not that my mom represents every American here, but there's people outside the industry don't know security that well. If you're a child who grew up in a impoverished neighborhood, the only way you get access to technology when you go home after school is your mom's phone or your father's phone. And so, chances of you learning how to code is slim to none, right? And so how do we change we have to change the system. But, if people like us can become mentors and mentees for these kids when they are younger, to find ways that we can supply, devices to them or give them training, we can make a difference, and we can teach them how to join our industry. One of the recent women's conversation I did, where a lot of the women talked about how they have made concerted efforts to finding other women and other groups of marginalized people that are not in security, and brought them into creative ways into technology, whether it be through marketing, whether it be through sales or other roles. And it's really, and to see them now become executives in those roles, it's such a good feeling. And so I think that's where I would end it. I think you can be a mentor. Anyone can be a mentor. Anyone can be a mentee. And you can continue that pay it forward sort of dominoes effect by just continue to do that.
Great final thoughts. Again, thanks for your time, and looking forward to our panel next week.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.